Alamo Bowl.
Yeah.
Here we come. We're going to break down TCU's bowl bid, put a bow on their regular season, talk about a little bit of a coaching shuffle happening on staff, and then we'll get into some other stuff on this episode of Frogs Insider. Hey, Frog fans, welcome into another episode of Frogs Insider. Jamie Plunkett here with Melissa Treebwasser as always. It's been a couple weeks, Treeb. It's been busy. It's the holiday season. I know that you've been gallivanting all across the globe, really.
As
just a
one
little
does.
globetrotter.
Yeah.
And, having a great time with the family, and that's been awesome. Excited, though, to hop back on and kind of put a bow on some things from the last couple of weeks. We're going to start with football, then we'll move into men's and women's basketball, and then kind of wrap up the end of season for soccer and volleyball, both of whom made the playoffs in their respective sports, and soccer obviously making their huge run all the way to the College Cup. Controversial ending to their season, but we're going to get into that a little bit later on in the show. We are part of the Dave Campbell's College Podcast Network. We are one of 13 shows in the network, each covering a D1 football program in the state of Texas. If you want to find that stream, you can do so just by searching for Dave Campbell's wherever you get your podcasts, and that feed will show up. You'll get our show and shows for all the other programs in the state. If that's too much for you, you can just follow Frogs Insider wherever you get your podcasts, or go to the YouTube channel. You could be looking at our faces right now. I don't know if that's a selling point or not.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm looking pretty bags under the eyes right now after 4 basketball games.
Do you even know what time zone you're in at this point?
It's irrelevant.
Yeah, fair enough. You could be watching this. You could also be watching the post-game press conferences from TCU basketball's win over North Texas, or any other post-game press conference that we have posted over there, interviews and all of those kinds of things over on the YouTube channel. Very thankful for everyone who has gone and liked and subscribed and done all those things, left a rating or a review. And Melissa, we got our Spotify creator Wrapped. You know, you get the Wrapped thing at the beginning of, or at the end of every year. Listen, I've been saying it on the show for a while now that the numbers are going up. They're going in the right direction for the show. I didn't realize quite how much, though. 140% increase in listeners. That's just on Spotify. I know Apple's gone up as well.
Thanks, guys.
Super thankful.
Gals. Yeah.
Super thankful for everyone that listens and gives us feedback on the show, whether that's on social media or in the DMs or texts or whatever it is. Just very grateful.
Stops and says hi to us. I had a couple people stop me today. Talked to a couple people this week, which is always super fun when we get a chance to meet you guys in person. And I think that's pretty cool. It still amazes me after 11 years of doing this together. There's still so many people that listen to us talk about TCU athletics. Kind of wild.
Must be doing something right, or
I guess.
Yeah, we'll go with something. We're doing something right.
Sure. Yeah, we'll stick with that.
There's no real alternative. But we will both be in San Antonio, so if you see us around bowl season, if you are down in San Antonio as well, please feel free to say hello. I feel confident saying Melissa does not mind if you approach her, as long as you're not weird about it.
Yeah,
and I'm the same way.
Yeah,
I'm the same way.
Fair.
Just come say hi, though. We love talking to Frog fans and meeting as many of you as possible, because without you, the show, it would just be us yelling into the void, which
also fun. Yeah.
It kind of feels like the indie drill, but here we are. It's weird to talk out loud by yourself for that.
Feel that. Yeah.
It is weird. I need to get back on that horse, by the way.
You know what? It's a busy time of year, Jamie, as we said. There's been a lot of look, I think what people don't understand is how hard November and the first half of December are for media, especially when you're media that has a full-time job as well, like both of us do, because pretty much every game that you're going to cover is at home. So, and plus you still have football stuff, plus you still have softball or soccer and volleyball. There's been a lot going on. Like I covered 4 basketball games in person this week, and I'm tired, man. Like, it's great and I love it, and that's not me complaining, but it's you kind of look forward to conference play a little bit so that you're down to maybe 2 of those a week. And I'm also coaching, as you well know. And I talked to Mark Campbell for a couple minutes about my team today and asked him for some tips. So that was kind of fun because he was out there at Dickey's watching TCU men play, as were Clara Silva and Clara Bielefeld. So I asked them if they wanted to suit up and get some run, and they said they thought that'd be really fun. So pretty fun. Pretty fun to see TCU women's basketball out there supporting too.
It is cool. You see that a lot across TCU athletics with teams showing up for each other. You saw football showing up for the women's soccer team throughout their playoff runs at the for the games that were on campus. Football showed up for both basketball teams as well. And I know that the various student athletes across campus are in the student section for most football games as well. Maybe not together as a team, but really more of a social hour, but still really cool to see.
They're there. Yeah. It's
all across campus. That's cool. So you've gotten now in your time coaching feedback from a TCU offensive coordinator on play calling for flag football and some advice, some sage wisdom on the basketball court as well.
Yeah, it's nice. I guess it's nice to know people, right? And for them to like care enough to want to talk to me about my, I'll say what I asked Mark is, where can I find some wins not on the scoreboard, coach? Because I've got to get creative. You guys will be hearing. I know everyone loved my True B flag football updates on the show. There'll be some Oak Ridge Owls girls basketball update. Let's just say championships were won in the fall by the Owls. We'll see if championships are won in the winter by the Owls.
Look, starts with the mentality.
Starts with the mentality. Yeah.
Foundation. You should do a little color in the pyramid bit like Gary Patterson.
Oh, I like. You know what? That's a really good idea. I may steal the bit.
Visualize some of those wins, but that happened behind closed doors.
Yeah, I like it. I think I may be drawing up a pyramid tomorrow during school. So we'll see.
Love that. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this though. TCU football finishes 8-4 in the regular season. Two what I think are really good wins to close out November over Houston on the road. Houston finishes 9-3. They're in the top 25 currently. And then over a Cincinnati team that kind of had a backslide in November, but still won 8 games. Good quarterback in Brendan Sorsby as well. I don't think either of us projected them to get to 8-4 when they were sitting there at 6-4.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a really nice bounce back to kind of salvage November for TCU football. We know now that they're heading to the Alamo Bowl to play USC. So let's start with the finish of the regular season though, Melissa. They're sitting there at 8-4. I know that when we were doing the preview episode before the season started, I think we both had this team pegged for around 8-4 or 9-3.
Yeah. And
so now looking back and being able to say that we pretty much kind of had it pegged, what's your perspective on the success level of this season compared to first our expectations for this season?
I think it's so hard to think about how you feel about a team in August and then to think about what you know about a team in December, because we've done this 2 years in a row now where you look on paper and say, man, like, this is a team that's going to have to really battle to get to that 8 or 9 win mark. And then you look back at the end of the season and you say, man, they really had 9 or 10 wins right there. If you just, and there's been so much argument among fans, among media members, among everybody about was this a good season? And to me, at the end of the day, if you are out of the Big 12 championship game picture by November 1, or I guess it was like November 4th, right? Then it's not a successful season. 8-4 is not a bad record. And I think when you look at the opportunity to go and play in a really high level non-playoff bowl game against a really exceptional opponent, that gets me a little bit more excited than I would say I've been over the last month of the season. I think that gives you a chance to really build on something, but it definitely felt like this year felt a lot like last year, and that was just unsatisfying at the end. So if you just want to look at the final record and you want to look and say, yeah, I mean, they beat a ranked Houston team on the road, a team that finished ranked at the end of the regular season, that's something positive. But if you look at how kind of week to week things went and the opportunities that slipped away and, the 2 games where they really just weren't even competitive for a lot of those games, and losing to Iowa State, and Iowa State that was such a shell of itself that it had to opt out of a bowl games paying $500,000 to not play. And a Kansas State team that absolutely kicked your butt on the road, who's also not playing in a bowl game because that program has completely fallen to pieces here down the stretch. I don't think I'm satisfied. And, when you see what could have been and where you're at, like, I think that you need to see some actual growth a season for now to feel like this program's in the right trajectory. But that being said, you still finished 8-4 and you get to play in a great bowl game. And if you can beat USC, you can show some real positive momentum going into 2026.
Sonny Dykes said on the Alamo Bowl Zoom call that we had earlier today on Sunday afternoon, um, that bowl games nowadays, at least in his mind, are really kind of the first game of next season.
Yeah.
Because of the transitive nature of the portal and because there's so much turnover this time of year in the coaching staffs as well as rosters, this is more of an opportunity to kind of see what you've got in some instances. And I frankly think that's right.
Yeah.
We saw this last year with USC with Jordan Mailata, their quarterback, because that was his first career start. He had a great bowl game, and that was what made Lincoln Riley say, I think we've got our quarterback on the roster. And so they didn't go add anyone in the portal. Mailata had a pretty good year for them. So it is kind of an opportunity in some senses like that. For TCU last year in the New Mexico Bowl, you really got to see what you had with Eric McAllister as wide receiver 1. He had 9 catches in the first half of that game. And so there's some opportunity, I think, beyond just playing a good team and a really great college football brand in a bowl game that holds a lot of good memories for TCU. I do think that there is an opportunity in this game for TCU to maybe take a step towards what hopefully will be a more competitive and complete 2026 football season. For me, when I look back at this regular season, though, I sit where you are mostly. I think that the dissatisfaction from a fan perspective that I saw this season was the inconsistency. Mm-hmm. And I know that feels broad and relatively generic, but when you look at how good TCU was in portions of games versus how they finished games, the Arizona State game really comes to mind, and the Iowa State game really comes to mind, where you build these double-digit leads, you look almost unbeatable in these football games, and then all of a sudden you kind of crater in on yourself. Even the comeback that Baylor almost mounted, scoring 16 points in the last 2.5 minutes of that game. It just felt like, even though it was a veteran-laden team, sometimes they just kind of let themselves crumble. And so, yes, 8-4, solid season. And I posted this over at Horned Frog Blitz because everyone was really getting after each other. And that happens when there's a lot of dissatisfaction in the fan base. I said, look, it's totally, I think, appropriate to say that 8-4 is a fine season. I think it's totally fine to say that, they won some games that maybe they shouldn't have won or weren't expected to win, that they lost some games that they probably should have won. Let me pull it up, actually, and see if I can find it. But I think to ignore some of the issues, I think it's fine to say all of that. Say 8-4 is a good season, it's a fine season, whatever. I think if you ignore the context of how this season was set up, then that also kind of has an impact on how we look at 8-4. And what I mean by context specifically is the expectations that the head coach set for this season back at Big 12 Media Days. And it's one thing for us to sit here and say, oh, this team should have been in Arlington. They were out of that race by early November. So really, they didn't meet expectations. It's another thing when we're comparing TCU's record in season 2, what Sonny Dykes said back in July. Mm-hmm. And that was, the expectation this year is to go to Arlington. And so when you say that and put that on the record in front of every Big 12 media person, not just TCU folks, and then you come out and you're out of the race, you're not even in any of the graphics that the Big 12 does all throughout November about here are the different pathways that all of these schools have, and TCU's nowhere to be found because they're out of it already, then yeah, you didn't meet expectations. You failed in that sense. And so I think there's room and reason for criticism in that regard. I also still am of the belief that all of the issues we've seen are fixable. The question is, are they fixable by the coaches that are right there? I think that's up for debate at this point. But I think that they're all fixable and reasonably fixable. You got to spend money in the portal to go put an offensive line together. You're probably going to have to go pay for a cornerback. Probably going to have to pay for a linebacker. Probably going to have to pay for some defensive line. If TCU wants to have a really successful 2026, I think the consensus is they're going to have to pay. They're going to have to spend in the portal. Yeah. But ultimately, to wrap up this long-winded thought, I think it's okay if you're okay with TCU's 8-4 season. I think the people who are upset about the lack of competitiveness at the top of the conference and the inability to get to Arlington the last 3 years, I think they have a point. And I think I kind of lean in to their argument for, is this just where TCU should be now? Is this just kind of where TCU exists? And should it be that way? Can it be better? Because I think it can be better. And I think the way that they can get to be better is really easily achievable.
I mean, I think that they're not every 8-4 season is the same, right? Sure. And it's when you aren't playing games that matter in your conference to playing for a conference championship the last 4 weeks of the season, last 3 weeks of the season. That sucks. I don't expect TCU to make the Big 12 Conference Championship every single season, but I expect them to be in contention up until the last couple of weeks. I would like to be playing games that keep you in those graphics in the month of November.
Right.
And, I think we've seen what the model is in one regard. You can be Texas Tech, and I hate that this is what college football is, but it's what college football is. And so you can find a way to leverage the money that your program has and find somebody that wants to bankroll a championship caliber roster. You can be what BYU is and have great culture and guys
they spend money too.
They spent money too. Yep.
Yeah, they spend money too.
But also they didn't spend as much, and they were well behind the best team in the conference. I think we can all acknowledge that. Sure. You can do what Indiana did and somehow catch lightning in the bottle with super elite coaching and finding maybe undervalued pieces in the portals, but being able to develop and coach them up. And it feels like that's what TCU was trying to do. And, one team did it successfully and one team kind of didn't quite get over the hump with it. So, I don't think TCU is going to go full Texas Tech. And I don't think that right now they have shown that they can go full Indiana. And so you have to find something in the middle, but there's no reason TCU should be so far behind BYU and Utah. And, even to a degree, we'll see where Houston and Iowa State are in the future. But if this is not one of regularly a top third, top fourth of the conference program, when you think of all of the resources and the advantages TCU has built in, then that's not acceptable. And it's been 4 years, 3 seasons of not even being in a position to be in contention for the goals that you yourself, your head coach, your program, your athletic director, your chancellor, your president, your university has set. And that's, I think, where the frustration lies. So I can look at it and say 8-4, Alamo Bowl, USC, that's awesome. You win your last 2 games and you have a marquee game and a marquee opponent to play. You could feel really, really good at 9-3 with the win over USC. But like you said, and I think we both kind of agree that at the end of the day, the goal is to be competing for conference championships. And I mean, frankly, TCU has never won one outright in the Big 12. So they've got some work to do. And this is the parity of this league makes it really fun, but it's also really frustrating when you see how even the playing field is for the most part, and you are not up to that level.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I'm really glad you mentioned Curt Cignetti and Indiana. Because you know who tweeted about Cignetti yesterday after they won the Big Ten? That'd be Gary Patterson. He said, congrats to Coach Cignetti in Indiana. I guess there is still a place for veteran ball coaches to be successful in this modern day football era. There is. There absolutely is still a place for veteran ball coaches to be successful in this modern day football era. We've seen a lot of them be really successful in this modern day football era. Those ones that have been successful have been the ones that have embraced some of the newness that is now incorporated into college football, like NIL and rev sharing and a lot of other things as well. But
we'll see.
Interesting stuff.
We'll see what 2026 brings.
We will see. It might, probably, potentially, will bring a new offensive coordinator to Fort Worth, Texas, because reports have come out recently that Kendal Briles is in conversation with Shane Beamer in South Carolina to become the Gamecocks offensive coordinator after 3 years in Fort Worth. 3, I would say, above average to pretty good offensive years in Fort Worth. with some frustrations mixed in as far as play calling is concerned, red zone efficiency, those kinds of things. But all in all, I would say above average to pretty good 3 offensive years in Fort Worth for Kendal Briles. Not a done deal yet, I should say. Been hearing things around the program about potential replacements. Been hearing some things that they're still not totally certain what the Briles move is going to look like for him, whether that's South Carolina or somewhere else. But I would say it's probably a 60 to 70% chance at this point on the low end that TCU will be looking for a new offensive coordinator here in the next couple of weeks.
Well, I mean, whatever happens at this point, the fact remains his contract is ending.
Right.
So he either has to sign another contract or TCU, or he's going to sign it somewhere else. So there is going to be a change either in an extension or a new person here. So I don't know when contracts expire in college football, because God only knows what the calendar of the sport is anymore. But
yeah, who knows?
I mean, I think it's the amount of goodwill that was cashed in to make this hire has always made it to where the fan base is going to be completely polarized on the results. And there are going to be people that were never going to be on board with the Briles at offensive coordinator. And I can understand that. And there are people that are going to support him just to be counterculture because some people don't like him and probably have overvalued some of his success. And then there's people in the middle that just want to see the results on the field. And as you mentioned, it's been up and down. I mean, there are things that have been really good. Josh Hoover has a chance, if he is the TCU's quarterback in 2026, to break pretty much every meaningful quarterback record at that university as far as touchdowns and yards and all of those things. And so you've seen a lot, but I think it's to use Stevens from our last post-game show, Stevens saying there's still a lot of meat on the bone. And when you look at red zone efficiency and first quarter ability to put the ball in the end zone and the struggles that this team had in the month of November until that Cincinnati game, I think that he did more good than not, but at the end of the day, there was still a step that offense needed to take that it never quite got over the hump to do, the run game and the offensive line. I don't know where the responsibility falls in Power 4 college football when it comes to turnovers and offensive line and scheming and run game and all of those types of things, but some of it certainly falls on the OC. And so I think you do have a lot of people kind of doing the be careful what you wish for, because it could certainly be worse. But it could also certainly be better. And there's a good likelihood it could be pretty much the same. So based on some of the names that we're hearing. So I think that if you can fix the personnel problems, play calling gets a whole lot easier. Obviously. Like even in my flag football years, when my quarterback missed games, we struggled to win. When she played, we won a lot of games. And so a lot of that just comes down to the talent on the field. And so, but I also think that evaluating what you need in the portal is part of the coordinator's responsibilities as well, and where that money gets spent. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. As we're recording this, we don't know anything for sure. There's a very good chance a lot of news could break tomorrow. But, I think that it puts some potential excitement if you don't have an OC in place. That means maybe we get to see Sonny Dykes calling plays in the Alamo Bowl, and that would be pretty damn fun, I think.
I don't know when I should have looked this up. I don't know when the last time Sonny Dykes called plays was.
Yeah.
It might have been at Arizona. I don't know if he called plays at Louisiana Tech. I know he didn't call plays at Cal. I don't think he called plays at SMU because he had Lashley and then Garrett Riley. And he's never called plays at TCU. So we could be seeing kind of a throwback here. Yeah. And look, if that ends up being the case, if Sonny is the one calling the plays in the Alamo Bowl, how fun would that be? Like, that would be really, I think he would enjoy it probably.
Oh, yeah.
To kind of get back into it a little bit. I think it would be an opportunity for TCU to see another side of him that they really have not gotten to see. A little bit more engaged in the in-game kind of corrections and adjustments and kind of the back and forth and the chess match of a football game that he has kind of had to give up in a lot of ways to be the CEO style head coach that he has been. Maybe you get to see a little bit of a different side of Sonny Dykes down in San Antonio if that ends up being the case. We'll keep talking about the Briles situation as it develops. I'm sure if he ends up committing to South Carolina and signing a contract there, we'll get some more clarity on replacements at that point. I don't really feel comfortable talking about some of the names until we know for sure that Kendall's leaving. That doesn't really feel fair to him.
We don't want to pull an Iowa State and immediately announce his replacement as
no.
Before he's formally left.
Good on Iowa State. Yeah. Good on Jamie Pollard for having that thing in his back pocket because, Lord, that Penn State search. How backdoor successful could Pat Kraft get up there at State College with that hiring? My goodness, Matt Campbell should have been the guy they called 51 days ago. Yeah. And here they are still making a really good hire after that debacle. A lot of guys got extensions out of it, though, so good for them.
Yeah, good for them. A lot of money being made.
Guys.
Yeah.
A lot of money being made. A lot of money being spent to get rid of coaches that you don't like anymore. Yeah. Over the $250 million mark in coaching buyouts being paid just this cycle.
Amazing.
Goodness gracious. Melissa, TCU does have one more football game on the calendar. We've talked about it a little bit already. TCU will play USC in the Valero Alamo Bowl on December 30th at 8 p.m. Central Time on ESPN. USC was 9-3 this year. They finished 4th in the Big Ten. Their 3 losses were to Illinois by 2 points, Notre Dame by 10 points. We can talk about Notre Dame here in a second, and to Oregon by 15 points. Beat Iowa. They beat Nebraska. I don't know if that's quality win. They beat Michigan. Yeah. All right, I'm just going to list USC's wins for you in order. Missouri State, Georgia Southern, Purdue, Michigan State, Michigan, Nebraska, Northwestern, Iowa, and UCLA.
Okay. Big Ten. Go Big Ten.
I guess what was Northwestern's record at the end of the year?
How many of those teams were bowl eligible at the end of the year?
Northwestern was 6-6. Iowa is ranked. They're 8-4. Nebraska, I think, was 7-5 because I had the over on 7.5 wins for them. Yep, 7-5. They blew it for me. Michigan, 9-3. I didn't realize Michigan was 9-3. Michigan State, not good, I can tell you that. 4-8. They just fired their head coach and hired Fitzpatrick, right? No,
Pat. Pat Fitzgerald from Northwestern, who left in a cloud of scandal over a hazing thing.
Yeah,
so, fun.
I think based on the settlement, that might have not been as much his fault as the university would have led us to believe. Purdue 2-10 this year. Georgia Southern, Missouri State. Okay, and then UCLA was whatever UCLA was. 3-9.
Yeah.
So what's that? 4 teams with a winning record that they beat this year.
It's gonna be a really interesting matchup. I hadn't really thought about the history between Sonny Dykes and Lincoln Riley, and it was really fun to kind of get that rehashed.
I think they really like each other.
I do too. I think they're kind of friends.
I got that vibe.
Yeah, Lincoln was a player at Texas Tech when Sonny Dykes was on staff there, so they kind of grew up together in that regard. And he spoke so highly of Lincoln and his ability, like how early on they recognized that he had a coaching future. And Lincoln's first time ever calling plays, talking about people calling plays in the Alamo Bowl, was in the Alamo Bowl for Texas Tech when Mike Leach, when that all
was suspended.
Blew up. So that's kind of fun. Like, I think that we'll get the best out of both of these, and it's so hard because opt-outs and transfer portal, whatever, but I think the guys that show up on the sidelines are going to have a real desire to compete at a high level. I think both coaches are going to really enjoy the chess match and matching up with each other. There's a lot of mutual respect. There's a lot of between these two. And, my first immediate thought was like, man, TCU is in this real kind of precipitous position when it comes to the future of college football. And the last time that we said that, they faced off with USC in the Sun Bowl, and so there is kind of this synchronicity, I think, between this game and that game way back in 1998. It's going to be fun to see this one play out. And it's said, like, look, anytime you could match up with a big name and a marquee team and a blue blood, like, even though USC isn't the USC that we think of necessarily, Lincoln Riley's still a highly respected head coach, and this is a program that when you look at that uniform, you just think college football. So I think it's an awesome opportunity for TCU to establish itself, as to get some national attention in a way that they really haven't been able to since 2022.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it'll be interesting to see who's on the sideline and dressed out for both of these teams, because in this day and age, there will be some opt-outs, I'm sure. for TCU. There will be some opt-outs, I'm sure, for USC as guys think about the next step in their future and try to keep themselves healthy for whatever, either NFL draft prep or future team prep.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go into the transfer portal with an injury. So we'll see. We'll see how that shakes out over the next week or two. I think TCU will probably start their bowl practices this week at some point, or early next week. After finals have wrapped. And then we'll have a lot more about USC and the Alamo Bowl coming up as we get closer to that game. I will also shout out our friend Clint Foster here as well, because I know that he spent an inordinate amount of time and effort putting together a pretty cool documentary on TCU's Alamo Bowl win over Oregon. Sat down with a lot of players and former coaches that were a part of that game. You can find that link on YouTube. We'll probably link that in the show notes as well. I've kind of sat down for a couple minutes here and there and watched some of it. I have not made my way through all of it yet, but it's well done. I will say that. And he is not getting some of the financial compensation that I think maybe was expected post making that video. So if y'all want to go and give it some views and tell him he did a great job, I think that'd be pretty cool, because he spent a lot of time and effort and quite frankly, quite a bit of money on that production as well. Good effort by a former Frog, current Frog fan, Horned Frog, Clint.
Former manager or
former
manager, right?
Former football manager and current manager of all of the TCU anonymous accounts, I believe.
Yeah, I think Twitter. He runs all of them. Yeah, every single one of them. So
yeah, so
it's a full-time job.
Absolutely, it sure is. But we'll keep everybody apprised of any kind of developments that happen with TCU and the Alamo Bowl as we get closer to that date.
We'll do some 30th. Fun stuff. Yeah, I have some ideas here if I can execute them, which is always the question. So you'll get to hear a lot. We'll take you guys back down memory road, because it's not just one but two pretty fun Alamo Bowls for the Horned Frogs here.
Very
that they've played in. Both of those, both against Oregon, of course, that we all talk about, and then the Stanford game was a blast too. That was another crazy comeback.
Down 21-3.
Yeah, I'm fully expecting chaos in San Antonio, and I wouldn't want it any other way. This will
actually be cool with like a straightforward, significant margin of victory.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be fine. I'm not going to complain, but I fully expect chaoticness. So let's go for it.
Prepare for the worst, expect the best.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Men's basketball. We were both at Dickies Arena earlier today for their 65-55 win over North Texas. That's hot on the heels, less than a 48-hour turnaround from their overtime loss at home to Notre Dame. 9 games into the season, Melissa, we're starting to learn a lot about this basketball team. Let's start with some of the really positive things that I think we've seen from this basketball team. First and foremost, David Punch is taking that next step.
Yeah.
Both as a scorer and as a defender and rebounder. I think he's probably the most complete player that TCU has. Not probably. He is the most complete player TCU has. He's a big man. He's 6'8". He has the ability to create for himself off the dribble, create for himself in a variety of ways at the post. He's hit a couple threes this year, playing really good defense at the 5, which is not something he was expected to do entering the season, but has to because of the injury to Malik Diallo.
First career double-double today, which is
I was surprised by that. 12 points, 12
Wild.
boards for him, a couple blocks as well. He's averaging over 2 blocks a game. Just really, really impressed with the growth that we've seen from him 9 games into his sophomore season.
Yeah, he's a pro. Like that's the thing. Like his kid, he's got to take another step. Like I still think he needs to get a little bit more consistent. His like you said, his ability to create off the dribble is absolutely there. His confidence isn't always there. I think he needs to be a little more decisive when he goes to the rim. He's still kind of pulling up because he's a little bit undersized at the 5. It's not his fault that that's where he has to play. I think at a 4, with his ability to stretch the floor, I'd like to see him kind of work that 15-footer a little bit more and get that mid-range going. But he is doing so many things well. And right now, like, he is the linchpin of that team, both offensively and defensively. I think, and I'm sure we'll talk about him, but the ability to play with just a pure point guard, I think, has been a difference maker for David Punch, and just the way that the offense moves. Teams are really keying on him. We're seeing him get doubled pretty much all over the floor. And his ability to get through, not only to break double teams and split double teams, but to pass out of them. I think his passing is an underrated aspect of his improved game this year too. So I'm super impressed with him, with his leadership. He's becoming more of a vocal leader. I'm not going to say his last name because you make fun of me when I say it because I don't say it correctly. But the guy that he was matched up with on Friday from Notre Dame. Like to watch him kind of go back and forth and them John at each other a little bit was a lot of fun. So it's fun to see David being a bigger personality on the court and then being a real leader for his team as well.
Yeah, and we talked to him post game after the North Texas win today because he's been really vocal, especially in post game pressers, about where TCU needs to grow and improve.
Mm-hmm.
He's been talking about the inconsistencies on defense and the inconsistencies on energy these last two games. And so I was like, how are you, approaching that from a leadership standpoint? And I thought he gave a great answer, for a kid who's 19 years old and has to be one of the bigger leaders because he's one of the veterans on the team as far as been at TCU is concerned. And he just talked about his leadership role and how he's leading by example, trying to lead by example and just encourage his guys to give effort. He said, guys come from other places where this level of defensive effort isn't necessarily expected. And so it's just about communicating those expectations really clearly. And I thought that was a fifth year senior answer from a sophomore. I thought it was a really good one. And so I'm glad that David punches a horned frog and his growth has been really cool to see. And like you mentioned, having a true point guard has really been beneficial, not only to him, but for some other guys as well with Brock Harding, because, Brock Harding is a guy they added in the portal from Iowa this offseason. Undersized. We talked about it this offseason, concerns about the defensive side of the basketball with him. Would he be able to hold up with the physicality? So far he has.
Yeah.
And he has been the driving force behind TCU's offensive success this year, which in spite of only scoring 65 points against North Texas on Sunday, has been a really good and productive offense through the first 9 games of the season. And the fact that they were able to win a game today when the shooting wasn't falling, was it 3 of 17 from 3-point range against North Texas? He was still creating opportunities and looks. Guys were getting open down low because of his gravitational force with the basketball. I think he's been far and away, I don't know, far away. He's been a great addition to this roster. I think he's been one of the most important pieces they've added in the transfer portal, aside from maybe Xavier Edmonds and Jaden Pierre. But really, really good ad, really good find for TCU to go and get Brock Harding in the portal.
And it's just a pain in the ass in the way that you're so glad he's yours.
Mm-hmm.
Like he is like defensively, he's undersized, but he doesn't care. He's up in guys' pockets. He's got really quick hands. He moves with the basketball so well. He doesn't fall into the trapping of feeling like he needs to shoot too often. He does it occasionally. Everybody does. But he also is so savvy at knowing when he can get to the basket. He doesn't force it very often. He's gotten stuck a couple of times, but like who wouldn't? But I thought, he had a drive today where he turned the corner and in a big moment, UNT thought he was going to give it up, kind of spread the lane, and he kept control of the ball, saw his opportunity, and went to the hoop and scored a really critical layup at a big moment down the stretch. And he's a great leader. He's probably a Jamie Dixon like prototype point guard. And if he was 6'3", I think people would be talking about him nationally as one of the best point guards in the country right now. I mean, he just does a lot of things. Like, if I wish his 3-point shot be just a little bit more consistent, but he has such a knack for hitting it when it matters. I mean, we've seen him hit a couple of those in key moments already this season, and his leadership, the way he holds his teammates accountable for a guy that just showed up a couple of months ago, it feels like he's been a Horned Frog forever. I mean, he's just been an absolute stellar fit for this team in so many ways. And I love watching him keep his dribble alive, keep his eyes up, look for spots, and find guys at the right moment. Like his ability to navigate at his size is so impressive. He really is exactly what you want a college point guard to be in a lot of ways.
Averaging 10 points, 6.5 assists, and 3 rebounds a game. I mean, he does play a lot bigger than his frame, especially when it comes to rebounding. I think that's probably been where I've been most impressed with him off ball, is his ability to get into the lane and pull a couple rebounds down and start that transition break by himself. Because the reality is TCU is one of the smallest teams in college basketball. I think they're 355th in team height. And when that's the case, and you've got guys like David Punch and Xavier Edmonds who are going to have to try and take on bigger bodies in the lane and just control them and keep them out of the way, your wings and guards absolutely have to contribute on the glass. And we haven't seen that to the full extent yet. Dixon has been kind of banging that drum pretty publicly the last couple
Yeah.
weeks. But Brock Harding and Jaden Pierre, to an extent as well, have done a pretty good job of getting into the mix, pulling some rebounds down, and getting things started offensively from there. Jaden Pierre had a great shooting night against Notre Dame. You'd be
Yeah.
remiss if we didn't talk about him, because he and Brock both kind of struggled the first week and a half of the season, and then really started to find their footing, obviously, in those wins against in the game against Michigan, and then in those wins against Florida and Wisconsin as well. Let's talk for a minute. Oh, go ahead.
I would say I think that Micah Robinson and Jace Posey off the bench have been, and Tanner Toolson too in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the energy, Micah's confidence, you can literally see the game slowing down for him. It feels like every time he gets on the floor. I thought he was really impactful today. He had a bad turnover late, and he came back immediately and hit a shot. Like that ability to forget. And to play like a goldfish, to use the Ted Lasso, I think you can see his confidence growing, and he's got a very clearly defined role this year, which he didn't have last year, and I think that's helped a ton. And his size, Jace Posey is not a small guard by any stretch, but he plays a lot bigger because of his elite athleticism. And Mike is a big guy, and he's strong, he's physically imposing. And he's so even keel too. He's really quickly becoming one of my favorite players to watch on that team, because I just think he does so many things, and he's nowhere near hit his ceiling. Like what he's going to be capable with his shooting touch, his size, his athleticism, and just his manner on the court. Like, I'm so excited to see him develop, and I have a feeling by the end of the season, we'll be talking about him as one of TCU's most important players.
I think so too. And I'm glad you mentioned Toolson. We can go here. I was going to talk about I've been really impressed by TCU's defense. I didn't think it would be this good.
Yeah.
And it's still definitely a work in progress. But let's talk about Tanner Toolson for a second. He had 10 points today on 50% shooting. He was 2 of 3 from 3-point range. Really one of those wings that he's kind of a true 2, but he's been asked to play a little bit of the 3 as well this season so far off the bench. Very aggressive rebounder.
Yeah.
Aggressive on the loose balls. We saw him go to the floor for a steal today, and just kind of your scrappy guy. Like, he's just going to work really hard and be annoying. They have not seen the shooting production from Oregon State transfer Lataras Lelevicius
yet this year. I think that's
Lelevicius. Lelevicius. Anyways, LT, they haven't quite seen the shooting production from him that they were expecting. He was a 39% 3-point shooter at Oregon State last year. He is shooting 33% from 3 this year. He's had a couple good games, but he's 1 for his last 9 in TCU's last 2 games from 3-point range, and isn't quite giving you the rebounding production that you want from a 3 that is 6'8". Yeah. I wonder if maybe there's an opportunity to get Toolson into the starting lineup at the 3.
Yeah.
You go a little smaller, but you're already small.
Yeah.
Right? So you're not really sacrificing that much. You get his 3-point shooting into the starting lineup. You give LT a chance to maybe have a little less pressure.
Yeah.
Come in at that 4 spot a little bit more, maybe. Because Dixon's talked a lot about getting this rotation right with his bigs, because you've already down Malik Diallo. You're asking Punch and Xavier Edmonds to do a lot at the 5. And Edmonds, especially making that transition up from JUCO, is finding himself into some foul trouble relatively frequently. I wonder if you throw Toolson in at the 3 to start. You let LT be the first guy off the bench for either Edmonds or Punch, and let them get maybe an earlier breath in the game. Keep Edmonds out of foul trouble a little bit. You preserve his fouls for the second half there, if maybe that doesn't resolve some of those tensions in the front court a little bit. And maybe that helps the offense a little bit too.
Yeah, I agree. And we know Jamie does not like to change his starting lineup. But what they haven't had much of a break. And they haven't had a lot of time to practice. And so with this finals week break, I'll be interested to see if they go to the drawing board a bit and make that change. I think that we know why they brought LT in, and we know what he's capable of. It just hasn't happened yet. And if nothing else, you get the energy of a Toolson into that starting lineup so that you can, avoid some of those slower starts that have plagued this team a little bit. so far this season. So I agree, and I think Toulson can slide into that 3 really well alongside Brock and Jaden. And I think that maybe if you can use LT as a little bit more of a stretch 4, maybe that shooting can come along. Maybe he'll get some better looks because he's pretty physically strong and he does a nice job finishing around the hoop when he attacks. And we have seen him put the ball on the floor a little bit more, but he's not giving you what you need defensively, and he's not rebounding at the rate you need him to with his size because of what TCU is lacking. And so maybe you give him a minute to let the game unfold a little bit before he jumps in, and maybe that helps him kind of get his footing a little bit easier.
Maybe so. Just a thought. I said something, we talked about something on the pod last year around this time, and then we saw that adjustment happen in real life.
Yeah. So if you're listening, JB,
I think this
free
is
advice.
This is just kind of the time in the year that we do this on the show. I also, and Dixon, to his credit, talked about this post game after North Texas. I think we need to see a little bit more Bug Edwards. I know that the veteran guards have played really, really well for you, but you bring in a kid who was the MVP on a state championship winner like Duncanville, top 40, top 50 kid in the class, and he's seeing like 3 minutes a game.
He's got to play.
And he's got to play a little bit more. He came in at the end of the first half against North Texas. His speed and transition, I think, could unlock something for this team that wants to run. They want to run so bad. They have not done it quite to the extent that Dixon wants them to. His one basket today was in transition, and it was just kind of free flow from Harding. Got up, got the ball from Harding, and was at the rim before anybody could do anything about it. Got the layup, got called for a foul, was a little bit out of position defensively on the other end, which is kind of the downside to playing a young guy. But I think you need to see more minutes from Bug Edwards.
He's instant offense. And in a day where they were and that was what was so frustrating today. They were struggling so badly to score. You put in Bug Edwards, he immediately scores, and then you barely see him the rest of the game, right?
You didn't see him in the second half.
Yeah. So you've got, I know Jamie hates to play freshmen. He only did it last year because he absolutely had to because everyone got hurt. But I think you've got to find opportunities to get this kid meaningful minutes because you're going to need him at some point. And he just scores every time he's on the floor. Maybe his defense isn't where you want it. Maybe physically, he's getting pushed around a little bit. Fine. I get it. But you live with that in order to see if this kid can give you 8 points a game, which I think is completely reasonable expectation.
You've got 4 more non-conference games in December. It's Incarnate Word, Oral Roberts, Florida A&M, and Jackson State. These are the 4 games where hopefully we will see more minutes for Bug Edwards. Maybe see some more minutes for RJ Jones and Ashton Simmons as well. Dixon talked about all 3. He said that they have really good practices every single week because of those 3 guys. Yeah. He says they come to practice. None of them have missed a practice. None of them ever complain. They work their tails off. They're some of the hardest workers in practice every day. And so he did give them their flowers post game, after North Texas. But Bug Edwards, I think, needs to play a little bit more. I think he does.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
You know who doesn't play? You know who doesn't play around?
Who?
TCU women's basketball.
No, they do not. Great transition.
My God, what they did to a good UTEP team.
What's it like to struggle and then look down at the end of the day and your star point guard has a triple-double and you won by 55?
Yeah, the last 2 times this team has taken the court, in the first half, I've been man, this is not the version of TCU women's basketball I'm used to seeing. And I look up at the score, and they've absolutely murdered somebody, and the family is crying in the stands because they're so upset at what's happening to their children. And
not the children. Think of the children.
UTEP's a good team. That was an undefeated team.
Are they going to be are they tournament good, or are they just UTEP good?
They definitely could be tournament good. Okay. This is it. They rebound really well. They defend well. They've got some decent size. And TCU looked really bad in the first quarter initially. The first half of the first quarter really struggled. And then they were oh, no, wait a minute. We're TCU. And all of a sudden, Olivia Miles is doing things that have her all over social media. She got posted by every basketball account, men's and women's, yesterday for her little in and out dribble to lay up in transition. That was one of the sickest moves I've ever seen. Cam, who you guys know is Cam on the mic, passed out, I think, at one point. He was on the ground. He was just blown away. Yeah, I mean, this team, its depth, the rotation, what they can do defensively. This is one of the best defensive teams in the country right now with what they're doing to opponents and shooting percentage, and their defensive efficiency ratings are off the chart. Donovan Hunter continues to put together quietly a season that's getting her on WNBA draft radars for 2027. She is very quietly moving up the big boards of a very loaded 2027 draft class. Marta Suarez also now is starting to get looked at as a potential first round pick because I mean she's putting up 20 and 10
killing it.
like every night. And just what
she also
can
murdered
do.
a person on a screen.
She murdered a girl yesterday too, Saturday on a drive, and the girl flopped, and I don't blame her for flopping. But yeah, Marta is super super special with her skill set. And then Olivia Miles is just the best vision in college basketball. I mean, there's just nobody like her in the game right now. And a lot of people that I talk to in WNBA circles will say like her 3-point shooting efficiency is down this year, but she is one of one on most draft boards, and the Wings aren't going to draft her to play with Paige Becker, so she's not going to go number 1 overall. But
that's a tragedy. It should be the case.
Yeah, well, and like you could see a trade. I don't know. There's a lot going on there, but this isn't a Dallas Wings show, so I won't talk about it. But yeah, there's this team. They're still figuring it out. Like they're 10 games in, and they're still figuring it out. But you can see what they're capable of, and it just sucks that nobody will play them. Yeah. Because I really wish they had an opportunity to play some more marquee opponents. They tried really hard. I got some names of teams that or opportunities they had where opponents said no,
teams
thank you.
Teams were running scared.
Yeah, they were running scared.
There's UCLA that secret exhibition. We never saw any stats or scores or results from that.
Yep,
people were running scared.
Tell me who won that one. But yeah, so I mean, you've got a couple tune-up games, and then conference play begins in a little bit less than 2 weeks with the Kansas State team that just knocked off undefeated Ole Miss at the buzzer. So. I think that it's there's going to be some up and downs when you get into Big 12 play, but this team 8 deep. I think Mark is really confident. Kennedy Basham gave some really good minutes as Clara Silva struggled a little bit early on against UTEP. Clara Bailfeld is an 18-year-old freshman still figuring it out, but you can see her starting to come along. And Taylor Bigby's been exceptional. Taylor Bigby is the unsung hero of this team, and Maddie Shear too, who it looked rough. The first couple weeks out, but she's leading the conference and one of the top guards in the country when it comes to assist to turnover ratio. And she had 21 and was 5 for 6 for 3, I think, on Saturday. So this team is super, super solid up and down at every position. They have capable backups at every position. Dono can step in and run the point. If Olivia needs a blow, Maddie Shear could run the point if she needed to. And everybody can shoot and everybody eats. And they share the ball in a way that is so unique and special for a team with 10 new players. Like this program continues just to be just ridiculous in how they do their business and what they're able to accomplish.
Can I ask you a question that you're gonna give me a cop out answer on?
Okay.
Is Olivia Miles the best TCU women's basketball player ever to step court in the purple and white?
I mean, from a talent perspective, relative to the position she plays, I don't think it's unreasonable to say yes. But I think you have to look at, Sandora Irvin, what she did across a long career, and just the number. Like Olivia Miles isn't going to put up the numbers, I don't think, because that's not what she's being asked to do.
Also, the game has changed a lot.
Game has changed a lot. I think. Just from she is the most naturally gifted player I've seen in a TCU basketball uniform. And I think she maximizes her gifts about 98% of the time in what she does on the court. But, I think the best overall, I'm never going to discount the fact that Olivia Miles is here because Haley Van Lith came first, and Haley Van Lith changed the trajectory of this program from a perspective of what types of players are willing to come here. And it's hard in this era when you're going to have back-to-back 1-year players that are going to probably deserve to have their jerseys retired. And at what point do you do it? It's just an interesting world. But you have, Lauren Hurd was exceptional, and I think is the career scoring leader, second place all time. Sandora Irvin, obviously. There have been some really talented players that have done it over 4 years. But there's nobody that has what Olivia Miles has that's worn that uniform. And I think that with her at the helm of this talented team, this team could be a Final Four team if the bracket breaks right. I think we need to see more out of the combination of Silva and Basham. They just aren't finishing at the rim quite like I would like to see them do. And I think they can rebound a little bit better, but defensively, they've both been so good and so solid. When this team presses, like I can't wait till they play competitive games. I want to see them press for 30 minutes because it's hell. It is absolute hell because of the length and the size and the speed that they have.
We saw it a little bit against NC State.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was great.
It was great. So Kansas State will be fun. It sucks because it's a Saturday after, it's right before Christmas. The students are gone, but I'm hoping that's a game the community will come out and support. I'm going to keep banging that drum, man. Like this team is good and it's fun and these players are likable and they care so damn much and they care about the community. And they're involved in things off the court. And they if you guys missed it too, they signed a kid who had been dealing with cancer. Her name was Kaylee. They signed her to an honorary contract. She was at the game. She was the honorary coach for the day. And those types of things are super important to this program. And I love how much they care about Fort Worth. And even these kids that have only been here for a couple of months are super bought into we want to be a part of the bigger community. I mean, the line for autographs in a game that was really sparsely attended, I waited, I think, an hour for the player press conference Saturday afternoon because of how many people were waiting to get those girls to sign, and that's pretty freaking cool.
That is cool. They've got a couple games coming up in non-conference against Jacksonville and Arkansas Pine Bluff after finals week on the 14th and 16th, respectively, and then they do launch right into Big 12 play with Kansas State. The good thing about this Big 12 slate, I know that the Kansas State game comes right before Christmas. Their next two games are on the road in Utah, BYU and Utah, and then they're hosting Oklahoma State on Wednesday, January 7th.
Huge game.
And I believe I need to double check TCU's calendar, but I think that's the day after students come back.
Yeah,
and so
that's
it would
be a ranked matchup.
It would be a really cool thing to see kids get right back from Christmas and get into Schulmeyer and support this women's basketball team against what will be a ranked Oklahoma State opponent.
Really good Oklahoma State team too. That's going to be a huge game for this program. You get them, you get Audie Crooks and Iowa State at home this year. That's going to be a great game. Obviously you get the home and home with Baylor. The Big 12 is really good. West Virginia is a lot better than people anticipated they were going to be this season. They've looked really good. They've had some great wins. So it's going to be a good test for this team. But I would say right now they're absolutely the favorites to win the Big 12 again. Baylor's got Texas on Sunday at Dickies. We'll know a lot about Baylor. Texas right now, I'd say right at this very moment is the best team in college basketball. They beat South Carolina. They look outstanding. So we'll see what Baylor's got against a really good Texas team, and that'll kind of tell us what we can look forward to in conference play.
The semester starts January 12th.
Okay, get back early,
we'll
kids.
We'll see if kids come back early. But that Arizona State game on the 11th, hopefully folks will be back in town. And that Arizona State team, I believe, is undefeated right now.
Yeah, first year,
10-0. Yeah, 10-0.
Yeah.
First year head coach Molly something from Grand Canyon.
Yep, I'm sure a lot of the gentlemen in Fort Worth will want to come out for that game for no particular reason.
Why would you say that? What do you mean?
I said for no particular reason, just to support TCU women's basketball.
What do you mean by that? Anyways, some really fun and entertaining basketball on both sides of the aisle, I think, coming up for TCU. Looking forward to seeing how both the men and women perform in Big 12 play this year because both conferences are pretty stacked.
Yeah.
Pretty stacked. Higher mountain to climb, I think, for one than the other.
Sure.
But both, I think, will be gritty and competitive throughout the conference slate this year. Let's talk about another team that was gritty and competitive until the very final seconds of their season.
Man.
On Friday evening, TCU women's soccer falls to Florida State 1-0 in the Women's College Cup. That is their version of the Final Four. This is the farthest that TCU soccer has ever gone in the tournament. It's their first Final Four appearance. Eric Bell, once again, has put together just a masterful roster. Had that team competing at the highest possible level in spite of injuries to All-Americans, to several players in key positions missing time throughout the season. It is so often that you see teams across all sports lose key players and then crumble. And TCU women's soccer never did that. They won the regular season Big 12 championship. They, I mean, had some absolutely insane playoff games against North Carolina and Vanderbilt that both went to, or I guess the North Carolina one went to PKs.
Yeah.
They scored in the final 4 seconds of that game to tie it. The golden goal against Vandy in Nashville.
And crazy weather conditions.
Crazy game against Florida State where it felt like they were way back on their heels for the first 25, 30 minutes of that game, and then punched back really against Florida State. A Florida State team that was very physical, that was a lot bigger than them at certain positions. Had a couple great looks at it in the second half there on some kind of fast break, counter stuff. Goal by Florida State was well earned.
Yeah.
And then the controversial call in the last few minutes where it appeared like a Florida State defender had committed a handball in the penalty area, went to VAR. Review said no handball.
National pundits were livid.
Everybody that I saw on social media, aside from Florida State homers, was like, we don't know how that wasn't a penalty kick for TCU. And I mean, I was sitting in Schollmeyer getting ready for TCU Notre Dame men's basketball, watching it on the Jumbotron. You hadn't quite gotten there yet, or I guess you had gotten there, but they had taken the stream off the Jumbotron probably 30 seconds before Florida State scored their goal, because they had to do pregame stuff for basketball. So I pulled it up on my phone.
I was down in the media room.
You were down in the media room, and then the handball thing happens, and you could hear like everyone around the stadium that was still watching the game on their phone be like, what was that? People in the media section were like, well, that was a handball. What's going on? Really disappointing situation that ends up ending TCU's season, because I think, obviously if you get the penalty kick opportunity there, really good likelihood that they score, at least force overtime, maybe more penalty kicks, who knows. Really disappointing that kind of tarnishes the ending of a really impressive season from TCU soccer.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to suck that's how it ends. I think Florida State going into it were pretty big favorites. They're a team that, even though they weren't, number one seed, they had the talent to be a number one seed. That's a really good program, a program with a lot of history, a lot of success. And so, you would have loved to have seen TCU get the opportunity to get that penalty kick. But absolutely no shame in this program, the way they competed or the way they lost. They gave it everything they had up in Kansas City. And Eric, I've kind of avoided talking about this because it makes me a little bit nervous that Texas A&M hasn't made a hire yet for their women's soccer program. And Eric Bell's probably been the top of their list. You really, really hope that you do whatever it takes to keep that man in Fort Worth, because it's not just what he's built and what they've accomplished this year and the talent that he's brought in and developed. I mean, Seven Castaigne is going to go down as an all-time TCU legend, and she should. But he brought in, so many really good pieces and developed so many really good pieces in order to give this team a chance to kind of get to that place they'd never been before. And they graduate a ton of talent. Obviously, Seven. Katana Norman was awesome this year. AJ Hennessy, had the winning PK against UNC. Sydney Becerra came in and was really, really outstanding for this team. But, Bella Diorio hopefully is back at full strength. That's an All-American. Evie Baker comes back. Morgan Brown, who has just turned into such an elite player in her sophomore year. Cameron Patton, who is such an important player for this team. Olivia Geller and goal, who was an absolute revelation here in the postseason, just stood on her head time and time again for this team. They bring back so much talent. The freshmen, You've got Emma Ulinski, another transfer who really came on strong at the end of the season. Grace Vest, one of the fastest players probably in college soccer, and of course Camden Fuller, who had the goal in the last couple seconds of that game in regulation against UNC, and is such a talent and a kid who's only 17 years old. So
Yep.
there is a nucleus of this team that can be really, really special next season. Like they could definitely make another run. And they won't have to add a ton of pieces. They signed another unbelievable recruiting class too, and Eric has shown he's willing to play freshmen. And he recruits the type of freshman that could play right away. So hopefully, Mike Buddy is on the phone every second of every day, making sure that Eric Bell has everything that he wants and needs in Fort Worth, because this is a team that can be a championship contender in the next couple of seasons, and I have no doubt for years to come if they decide that that's what they want to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, hashtag resign Eric Bell, extend Eric Bell, give him a raise, do whatever you got to do to keep that man out of College Station. Lord knows, Fort Worth is a better place to be.
Oh,
in
amen.
many facets. Moving on, another team that really had to grind through some injuries this year saw their season come to an end on Saturday night down in College Station. TCU volleyball lost to Texas A&M in the second round of the NCAA tournament in 4 sets. This was a team that, I mean, Jason Williams had to really get creative at times with his rotations and with his lineups due to some injuries this year. An outside hitter that was just 5'9", she lit the world on fire. But they were grinding there for the last month or so of the season, really kind of struggling to put teams away, struggling offensively, and kind of some of those issues came home to roost in this series against Texas A&M on Saturday night. They fall in the second round, but again, this is another team that the trajectory is going in the right direction. You think if they have, one
Jalen
less,
Gibson.
if Jalen Gibson doesn't get hurt, right, another All-American caliber player. Things maybe end a little bit differently for them this year. But another team with the trajectory is going in the right direction. Jason Williams has brought in a couple really good recruiting classes. I think doesn't have to hit the portal maybe as hard as he has the last few off seasons now, because he's really building a program that can kind of sustain itself moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, they really had to fight through the month of November, just trying to figuring out what rotations could work. Like you said, Evan Hendricks ended up, having to play a position and did so successfully. And now you've got her coming back with so much experience and having just performed at such a high level. Becca Kelly, I think she's just going to continue to develop. She's got so much talent. And if you can get Jalen back next season, I think with Samara Coleman continuing to develop and some of those younger players, then I think that they knew they had something special this season. And if you don't lose your All-American in the first couple of days of the season, it's probably a little bit different. But the experience that those girls gleaned from having to play out of position and try different things, and I think hopefully that will kind of galvanize them. And said a piece or two away in the portal, and I'm sure that he will be aggressive in finding what he needs. But this team has a ton of talent, and if they can stay healthy and get healthy this offseason and stay healthy through next season, I think that they could certainly be a team that makes a deep run into March. But proud of the way they kind of grinded and fought through it and stayed together. There was definitely some adversity for that unit, and I think no shame in losing to a really good Texas A&M program, but I think they would say they fell short of what their expectations were going into this season, but that should give them more motivation to accomplish it next year.
I mean, you're talking about a team that opened up with a win over the defending national champs, right? And so we know what the ceiling could have been. Injuries obviously lowered it a little bit, but there's no reason to think that they can't come out in 2026 and have just an incredible year.
Yeah, I fully expect it.
I think that's going to do it for this episode of Frogs Insider. Thanks for hanging with us. We will be back soon to talk more about TCU and the Alamo Bowl against USC. There will be developments in men's and women's basketball by the next time we gather, and maybe developments on TCU football's coaching staff as well. So we will keep you all up to date the next time we chat. But for now, go Frogs.
Go Frogs.